everybody, and welcome to today's core developer meeting number 74. Um, we're going to go through the agenda. Mostly, we're going to talk about the Istanbul block number that was accepted, that was suggested by Dano and affirmed by a few others in the Gitter chat, and we'll also go over the Berlin hard fork a little bit to talk about some of the tentatively accepted EIPs, get some testing updates out of the way, and we should be good. So this might not be a huge call today. So first off, we did pick a block number for Istanbul. I think it had, which one was it? Like I can scroll up and see.
9069000.
Uh, oh, 6-9. Nice. Um, so let me just type that in real quick. Okay, I have that for the record, and whoever's note taking can also talk about that in the notes that that's the number we picked on Gitter, so that's one of the decisions. Are there any other Istanbul updates from clients or the testnet or anybody?
Gorley forked.
Can we paste the block number in the chat, please?
Sure. Someone say that's the right one. I think I copy and pasted the right one.
Think that's right, yeah.
That's what I put in the EAP.
Great. Okay, and then CoinDesk did correct their article on that. Um, So, yeah, if there's no other updates, I guess another thing to think about is when are clients going to release their updated client that has the block number attached? Is that going to be kind of weeks away? Like we should check on that next core dev meeting?
I think for
Yeah,
base 2,
it's
we can have it within the next 2 weeks, if that's correct. So like mid-November, we should have something.
cool. Yeah, that's about the timeline that we had suggested, having it about 2 weeks after the block number decision. So people can have 2 weeks or more to upgrade.
I think we'll actually have it out next week. The PR's in, so a lot of these clients you can run the dev code, but that's not something we want exchanges to do.
Yeah. Also, the foundation's going to put out a blog post, or the cat herders are both, about the block number and what software to upgrade to, um, right around the time that most clients send out their update software download links. Next up, we have Berlin. So the first topic is the Ice Age. Tim, I think you did the agenda. What route did we want to go for the Ice Age conversation?
Hudson, can I interrupt before
Yeah,
we go
sure.
to Berlin? Um, I just wanted to ask that for every EIP change, it would be nice to record a decision in the meeting notes, saying, for example, mark EIP 1884 as final, because then EIP editors could just execute on the meeting notes and make those changes, and won't need to ask for confirmation. And I think that would help because we have a couple of PRs outstanding, changing these EIPs to final or whatever changes, and it's unclear whether editors should apply them or not. And having a final decision line in the meeting notes would just help.
Excellent. Yeah, let's do that for Berlin for sure, and for the ones we're talking about today, if they are in final state, I don't know how many of them would be. There probably needs to be more conversation on a few of them at least. Who's note taking today?
We'll take care of it. I'll communicate that.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So on the Ice Age, what direction do we want to go for that, Tim? Or are we just talking about it, or did someone request that?
So a couple calls ago, I think we said that the Ice Age would start kicking in next summer. And I'm not like 100% confident in this, so please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But so we'll probably want an EAP in Berlin that kicks back the Ice Age block.
Oh yeah, someone said they were going to write that. I forgot who.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Sweet. Not a huge rush on that, but yeah, let's do that and figure out how long we want to delay it. I think we just delay it the same amount of time each time.
That's 2 million. It gives us about a year, a little over a year each time.
Cool.
So we'll probably want to keep for
So next up we have tentatively accepted EIPs. EIP 663 is unlimited swap and dupe instructions. Let me pull that one up. Oh, click the wrong link. So there has been a lot of comments in the Ethereum Magicians forum on this. I'll post the link in the chat too.
I think it may be good to go through the accepted ones and formally have them be done on the call first. Is that something?
Yeah, that sounds good. Do you have a list of that handy that you could like go on that, James?
I can pull that up.
Wonderful. While that's happening, Ratan and Dominic and Ed Sonyalan, are y'all from the same organization? Or y'all just joining the call? Or
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I'm on route back home from the gym, so I didn't want to turn my audio on in the middle of New York. But I'm from Bayfront.
no problem.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome! Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm scheduled for taking notes this meeting.
Oh, wonderful. Dominic?
Hey, I'm joining in actually because I'm always curious about the notes, and for some reason the chat is always used in Zoom, and it's not visible in the YouTube chatter box. So I'm joining for that reason.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so we have James pulling up that link of accepted, and oh, it's on the meta, isn't it? Is that all?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I think the reason I put tentatively accepted is there were no accepted EAPs for burdens so far. But maybe the meta EAP is not up to date.
This is for Istanbul. There hasn't been a call where we said these
Oh,
are
got
fine, and put in the notes, and then that's something that can be referenced in the updating for the EIP editors to use.
Oh, that makes sense. Got it.
So those tentatively accepted lines were copied over from the Istanbul EIP where it said Istanbul Part 2. So whatever was part of Istanbul Part 2 has been just moved over as is, but there was no further discussion.
Yeah,
Understood. Yeah.
when I did the PR for the Meta EAP, I made sure to cross-reference in call 68 to make sure those were the EAPs we agreed on, and I did cut the rest off because I saw that they were in Berlin. So I didn't update draft to accepted. Should we formally make 1679 accepted, which is the Istanbul Meta EAP?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Okay.
Yep, and I have the list for the rest
go
of
ahead.
them.
All right, awesome. Or can you post the link to the list in the chat?
I do not have those on the same screen.
That's okay. Or if you want to just like start with which ones are accepted or tentatively accepted.
Yep. So this is the EIPs from the hard fork Istanbul EIP 1679. This is the source of truth from that. And the included EIPs are EIP 152, which adds Blake 2 compression function. EIP 1108 reduced alt BN 128 precompiled gas costs. EIP 1344 add chain opcode. EIP 1884 repricing for tree size dependent opcodes. EIP 2028 call data gas cost reduction. EIP 2200 rebalance net metered S store gas costs with consideration for S load gas cost change. I move that all of these EIPs be moved to accepted and final for the integration of Istanbul, which has already begun for the clients.
Great. I don't know if we have motions, but I second that. We probably should.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, I actually got off an EEA call earlier where they did like formal stuff. Like I'm like gonna table this meeting and stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, we're not as organized as that. But sometimes those are unnecessary. It depends. So we've just moved everything in the Istanbul meta EAP to and the meta EAP itself to final. It looks like. Is that accurate?
Unless there's any objections.
Okay, great. So on to Berlin. The hard fork meta has links to all of the tentatively accepted EIPs. Um, None of them are final as far as I know. And yeah, now we'll just go in order by number, I guess. Does that sound right?
Well, there's a point of the Ice Age. I have to still get like a real good numbers down, but going until July, I think is going to be too much. So as far as windows for when Berlin would work, we use the third week of the third Wednesday of the month. We could do like April, May, or June.
Okay. Um, is that something anyone wants to discuss today as far as timelines go?
I think that was James' point before we got started, right? Like that we probably should discuss that and then kind of reverse engineer what are like when do eats need to be ready based on that date. Did I get that right, James?
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
Can I pause this for a second? In our last
Sure.
All Core Devs meeting, I remember us at least talking about doing the EAP-centric process, which implies that we would not be selecting EAPs for the next hard fork, and that we would not be specific. I mean, we can set a date, but in terms of selecting EAPs and things like that, I was under the impression that the concept of the EAP-centric process was completely opposite of that, as in we don't select EAPs. Am I missing something?
Well, that was also kind of one of the points that I was bringing back to with making the discussion around available time slots, and then what is the time that things would need to be ready to get into any of those times, and then we can work from there. Not as in we as a group decide what EIPs, but we as in the entire core dev community decides what EIPs get in, depending on which ones actually get done in time. But knowing the dates, because we are running into the harder limit of the like, yes, it's the EIP centric model, but we do know within March to June we're going to need to have some fork to have an update for the Ice Age, so we have a little flexibility on when exactly that happens, but having a good timeline of this many weeks before that is the announcement, so that, or what are the steps that need to happen before that, then we can work backwards.
So I would like to drop a alternate option on the table, which is
Go for it.
That sort of is like, okay, we have a hard upper limit or whatever of when we can fork for the longest. However, that means that we're like sort of sitting on this concept of EAP-centric forking for months. Really, I think if we're going to like follow this EAP-centric model, then we are looking at clients finishing up this current pending hard fork, and then pretty much immediately after that, clients can start signaling that they support the new Ice Age delay EAP. And as soon as we see that signaling showing up across the clients, then we are in a position to start executing that as the like first trial EAP-centric forking process. So by setting a date that's like as far out as that, it feels like we're still sort of like modeling the old model, whereas it seems like we don't set hard fork dates under this EAP-centric concept. We immediately get this next EAP signaling in the clients, and then we start working on the fork dates for it once the signaling is there. Am I missing something or misunderstanding the concept behind the process?
No, that's totally fair. And what I'm trying to get is, so we have a upper bound, but we don't have a lower bound of how soon we actually could fork again. So there are like test nets need to be launched for a certain amount of time, and then that has to be, then there has to be a certain amount of time for clients to upgrade. So we couldn't fork next month, but we couldn't fork in 2 months. Could we fork in 3 months? So having the upper and lower bound of time, and then keeping it sane for implementers, so we're not doing too many or too little, is kind of something I want to be aware of.
Yeah, I think on that last point, like one objection that like I had to the sort of pure EIP centric model is the idea of one upgrade per EAP, just because there's like some fixed overhead to having an upgrade, both for client developers and just for the entire community who has to upgrade their nodes and whatnot. So I, and especially given that something like the Ice Age is such a small EAP, I wouldn't advocate for saying let's implement the Ice Age as soon as possible and then fork, as soon as that's ready in clients, because I guess realistically, we could probably get the Ice Age in the release for clients in like a month or so, and then a month of test nets and then a month of upgrades. It seems like you're kind of incurring all this overhead and coordination for just a single EAP, and so I feel like the kind of middle ground approach might make sense, where it's like, yes, we probably want to set some date where the upgrade happens, but we probably don't want to move that date based on things not being ready yet. Whereas this is kind of what we've done historically. It's like we say there's these 5 EAPs, and like one EAP being late can delay the whole upgrade. But if we said something like, I don't know, we have an upgrade in May going live on mainnet, therefore we need something in April on the test nets, therefore we need client implementations by March, something like that, then whatever's not implemented by March is just not included. And then the community can use that as a signal to make sure they have their implementations ready, but we just kind of commit to not changing those dates based on the amount of EAPs that are done.
Piper, what do you mean by clients signaling whether they're in favor of the Ice Age change or not? It wasn't clear to me.
This is me foggily pulling stuff from the EAP-centric forking model from my memory, but my recollection was that part of that was clients being able to essentially flag the EAPs on, at which point there's like signaling from the clients that shows that they support it, have it enabled, that sort of thing. Now I'm kind of just fumbling over my words because I'm pulling all of this from memory and I'm not at my computer.
Oh, that's fine. So basically, I see what you're saying, and what I remember from the step, which also is just memory, is that we kind of decide it in the same way we would normally decide an EIP as far as should this go in or not, but there would be things that would happen beforehand, like it being fully spec'd out, conversation fully happened, and implementations somewhat started, right?
Yeah,
I don't know. I think. Go ahead.
My understanding would be similar to yours, Hudson. The first step would be that the all core devs, whenever a new EIP is proposed, all core devs would give an opinion whether it's a good idea in general or not. And that is practically the same what we have under the tentatively accepted in the Berlin list, I would say. We gave a blessing that those generally make sense to work on, but then those who propose them have to work on speccing them out, creating tests, and likely creating the implementations. And I believe then is perhaps the signaling from clients is this implemented, etc. And at that point, the OCRDs have to make a proper decision and review the spec and the tests. I mean, that would be my understanding of this.
Yeah, there's the step of the clients having PRs and accepting them, and then there's a final step of the core devs coming back and approving it as actually going into the fork, to circle back to it.
Yeah, so I guess with this new process we're going through, or this hybrid process, or whatever we kind of talked about the last meeting, we need to reconcile with the fact that there is an ice age and that we need to have some types of timelines for when the ice age hard fork needs to happen. But then for other EIPs, it's less important. So, and then of course, like Tim was saying, the overhead of having roughly a 2 to 3 month period for implementation, testing, and or like testnet testing, and then deployment by major providers is overhead that we would need to also keep in mind. So juggling all that, we might need to better specify on paper the process, is what it sounds like. Because I think we had a lot of good ideas last meeting, but none of it was all combined into a very solid plan, I guess.
Okay. Reading through the process, the suggestion is that there's the blessing, that there's the implementation, and then there's clients are released with the ability to turn the EAP on at a specific block number. And then there's the all core dev sort of finalization step that happens where clients are capable of turning it on. The implementations are done, testing is done. And then at that point, block numbers can be chosen and the fork can happen. And at that point, those block numbers can define multiple EAPs that are going to go on or just a single one or whatever. But the idea there is that we don't set dates at the beginning. We set dates at the point at which there is fork ready material ready to go. So if we're going to follow that model, as I understand it, and that suggests that we are not supposed to be picking a date or a block number or a time for a fork today. That we kind of have the material that we need, which is we want the ice age delay, and we can talk about whether or not there's other ones that should be maybe focused on as well, but that what we would really be focused on right now is getting the ice age delay implemented in clients, getting tests and stuff ready for it, at which point we can set a fork date. Somebody let me know if that makes sense, if that fits with your understanding of the EAP-centric model as it's been proposed. But it seems like picking a date is still just doing the same process that we've done before, which is very waterfall-ish.
Yep. So I think I'm having two conversations at the same time, I think is what's happening. Because there's Among Us core devs saying, when are we going to fork? And trying to decide it is less of the direction of, at the same time, we as core devs are speaking to the community, saying that there's this realistic upper bound of, say, June, that something needs to be done. There's a realistic 3-month, it needs to have 3 months before like test nets are live, before really anything can happen. So if you take those two dates together, then you have April, May, June that's available for the Istanbul. And if we keep to, like, one thing I really like from Daniel's proposal is keeping to the third Wednesday of every month. If we're going to have a fork, it should be on the third Wednesday. Then we have sort of 3 third Wednesdays that are available. One of them will definitely need to have the hard fork that needs to have the update for the ice age. But as far as the state of all the other EIPs, we don't want to make the decision of what date it's going to be. But just as that gets closer, we will have to make a decision whether or not we wait 1 month to put it in so we can have something else that's getting close, or whether or not we just have it go together. Because there's like both ends of the spectrum, as Tim was saying. Like we don't want to have one fork for one EIP because that will limit us in throughput. We don't want to wait super long time and have a ton of EIPs because that also limits throughput. So somewhere in the middle of, hey, let's keep to the third Wednesdays of every month and have a good runway that is like the best runway of when things need to happen previous to that date, and then when things are ready, we can, as things become ready in the EIP centric process, which is what we'll be doing as core devs, then they'll kind of fit together or not fit together based on how that's happening.
So we're not really picking a date at this point. What we're doing is we're speculating on we're being pragmatic and saying here are some of the possible dates because of the overhead,
Yeah, cool.
and stuff like that.
That totally works for me. For that specific conversation, I would propose whatever that first one is. So basically the soonest, seeing as we're trying this new process out and quicker iteration cycle, basically. Anybody opposed to that or opposition? This isn't like a binding thing. This would be more just where we're targeting for.
Yeah, and that's one question I have is what is the soonest then? Would that be March? Because that's 4 months from now, 3 months from now.
I think that seems completely reasonable for this.
Yeah, I agree. Because realistically, we can decide on implement and do test for EIPs within a 3 to 4 week period, right? Is that actually, well, it depends on the EIP obviously and the complexity, but for a lot of these that already have work done on them, it's going to be easier to get that done sooner.
And tests will need to be done before it even gets through the process now.
Yeah, and the champion will be pushing for that. We also came to the conclusion that the champion will be more coordinator for the EIP and pushing for things like tests to be created and coordinating that, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I know Wei said that they want to remove their name from some of the ones they've been championing. So I had a question for Wei about that. Did you have someone in mind, or anyone who's stepped up to take over some of the EIPs that you will no longer be championing? Or is that something where we should just ask in a core dev meeting? Because I fear that some of the EIPs, I thought the account versioning one you were talking about is also a prerequisite to other EIPs that other people are championing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think someone mentioned EIP. Let me read the number. The EIP 663, the unlimited swipe and dupe instructions needs the conversioning. So that might be one, but I think like what I was saying is just that I won't be able to do the champion rule. Like I'm just don't have enough time to do all the coordination and taking, like it's a little bit too political for me. So I think it's better to, I don't have anyone to in mind to champion the conversioning. So it's probably better to ask local devs or just currently just remove it from the Berlin hard fork, and then if someone wants to champion, then we can add it back.
Okay, that sounds very reasonable. And so instead of immediately removing it, I propose that we still keep it in there and to see if anyone wants to champion it over the next 2 weeks before the meeting, so we don't remove it and then immediately have to re-add it, because that's just annoying. Because it sounds to me like someone will step up if it affects other EIPs that someone else is championing. That just seems to make sense.
Yeah, and for some context for that, there were a bunch of EIPs that were gated by some kind of account versioning. None of those got into Constantinople. So that's why account versioning was pushed till when we need it. So whether it's specifically Waze or something else's proposal, account versioning will need to happen for certain changes to be implemented.
Okay, let's try to map those out and talk to the champions of those EIPs to first let them know what a champion means now, and to let them know that there is, potential hiccups if there's not a champion found for a prerequisite EIP.
And I also want to give a note just on conversioning because I think we actually have. I mean, I have a specification that address some of the previous concerns. Like one of the last time when we talk about our conversioning, the resistance was mostly that because we need to introduce our conversion every 6 months, so that's not doable. But I have a specification that basically just make sure we can change gas codes or add opcodes freely with full backward compatibility, but only require like 2 versions. So future, like we only need the legacy version and the forward compatible version. And in the forward compatible version, we can just apply any EIP we want, and because the gas code is not observable, so it just works. But what I want to say is that if someone review that model and we think that's really the thing going on, what I would recommend is to do the account versioning in in a separate hard fork, that we have a hard fork just for account versioning to make sure the process is smooth.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, that sounds good. Once we have a new champion for that EIP, you should pass on that specification to them. Would be my recommendation. Or actually, yeah, is there a link to what you're talking about, Way, or is it not written?
There are links, but I mean the versionless EVM is not in EIP. It's not an EIP at this moment, but I have the specification. I never send it or core devs.
I think that we would benefit from a validation step that would do things that would cover a lot of what's in there, such as keeping invalid opcodes out, including the begin block data. But there's also some coordination that needs to go on with the Solidity community at the very least to make sure that their swarm URLs are put behind, or the hash of their swarm stuff is put behind that call data. So I don't think what we need to get done is doing it in the Berlin timeframe is reasonable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying is we better just have a separate hard fork just for a conversioning if we really want to apply it.
Okay.
And
So
just
yeah, I think
yeah,
that's
just
yeah. Go
as
ahead.
per Alex's point at the beginning of the meeting, should we record like an official action on 1702?
Yeah, that's a great idea. If it's not going to go into Berlin, probably, which is what was just indicated, I guess we would scrap it for Berlin.
Are we tracking EAPs against forks now, or do the EAPs just go in their own bucket irregardless of forks? In which case, nothing's going on with
It's not scrapping it like completely. It's more taking it off the meta if like it's not tentatively accepted anymore, and that's an official decision.
Do we need a separate tracker for EIPs in the new process, independent of the fork, though?
Why not just have like a blessed section in the meta, like literally renaming tentatively accepted to blessed or green light or whatever the step was in the process? I think it's valuable to point people towards like, this is likely what's going in. It doesn't have to be a super strong commitment, but otherwise, it's already hard for people who are not attending this call to keep track of all the work that's going on. So even if it doesn't purely reflect the process, I would be in favor of having like a list somewhere, and just naming the categories appropriately.
That I think a good way to reconcile those two is not to have it be a fork meta list, but just have an EIP that contains blessed EIPs, and then maintain that as a list as the ones.
So have that be an EIP status and like a page on the website, basically.
I don't know if it would be a status or if it would be better just to have an EIP that's sort of like a hard fork list, but instead it's just the blessed list and that just gets updated.
I like that idea. And there's actually is an EIP. Let me find it. An EIP one, there is a status and a type of EIP that would fit into that. I think it's informational and active.
Yep.
I thought that tentatively accepted would be the same thing as blessed.
It is, but saying that it's blessed for Berlin is no longer really accurate from how we are looking at EIPs from the fork centric model. But Tim is pointing out a very good part that's missing is a list of what are the blessed EIPs in the first place for people to look at. So that should exist somewhere.
Yeah, blessed EIPs don't mean they're attached to a fork anymore with the new process.
Right. I thought the tentatively accepted list were those which are intended to go into a future fork when they're ready.
But listing them on a specific fork gives the impression it's for that fork. That's why putting in a separate EIP will better communicate the intent of that state.
Yeah, that I agree to. I just don't see the need for yet another category.
Oh no, it's not it's a renaming.
Yeah, it makes it a little more specific because tentatively accepted is very vague when it doesn't have a fork attached to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just came out with the term sort of out of thin air on Dev's call this summer. So I would rather.
We've been mostly meta for 43 minutes now. With stuff.
I think that's okay because there's not a lot on the agenda today. But what were you saying, Greg? Sorry to interrupt.
Well, we just have a list of EIPs we haven't discussed yet.
Well, I don't think that's where I would motion that or this is just a suggestion, that we have the list that it was the list of tentatively accepted EIPs. It's not so important that we go through each one and talk about them but we should move them. Like I would move that all of those, and we can go through them by number, get moved to a blessed state, and then I'll create an EIP for blessed EIPs, and then put those in there.
No, I think a few of them should not be blessed. They're not actually technically ready.
No, the being blessed isn't meaning technically ready. It means the idea can move forward. Like it's not a show. There's no showstoppers in the idea itself.
I disagree on I think at least two of those.
In what way? Like you mean like that they shouldn't go forward, or?
Yeah, if you track the discussion, it tapers off with no actual consensus on whether they should be moved forward. Sometimes there's options and it's not clear an option was actually chosen. In the unlimited swap and dupe, there appeared to be a showstopper on the preferred option, and I didn't see any way around that was presented.
Got it. So for today's call, there's definitely going to be some low-hanging fruits of EIPs that are in the tentatively accepted list that have agreement and implementations that we can say are blessed. There are also ones, as you pointed out, that still have disagreement, may not be blessed, or because that's a new thing we're doing, or might be somewhere in the middle, in which case they wouldn't be blessed, and they would stay in this unknown state until more research is done and more discussion happens on them.
Yeah, that's why I'm here this morning, and we only have 15 minutes left.
No, meetings go till 10 or an hour and a half.
Okay, still, let's get that done.
Sounds good. Is there actually, since I mean, is there any that anyone want to focus on? Because Greg, if you're here for a specific one, we can totally skip to that one, in my opinions, because
Yeah, let me try and get both on this screen. Yeah, fat chance. The unlimited swap and dupe and the particle gas were the main ones.
okay. You can go over why you think, like, what you think of the current conversation around them and why they would or wouldn't be blessed, and then we can have a short discussion on that if anyone has any few comments, and then we can put it in blessed or leave it in unknown state.
Yeah, I think you're here, right, Alex?
Yeah, can I give a quick update? That
Yeah,
might be
you know
quicker.
it better than I do.
Well, just one comment regarding the blessed status. My understanding of that is it's just a green light that the idea in general may be good, but that only means that work has to be done to spec it out properly, and it doesn't mean anything more. And under that understanding, I do think that 663 does fall under that category. And then the actual update, I wrote this a couple of days ago on the Gitter channel that, yes, Greg, you're correct. There are a couple of options, and the preferred option had an issue discovered, and the resolution of that is that it would need to go behind account versioning.
Right.
So it's basically blocked by that.
Okay.
I don't think there was anybody preferring any of the other options. I think there was convergence on that single option, which relies on account versioning. So that's the status of 663.
Okay. Has it made it through last call on the magicians?
Nope.
I'm not sure we're at that point yet. Yeah.
So I don't see why they should be our concern until they've made it through that process.
I'm confused
Yeah,
about
it
the
hasn't.
last call process, how that applies to core EIPs in general. But I think the confusion is that the blessing only means that people should work. I mean, the champions or whoever wants to work on it should work on it. But it doesn't mean anything else. We don't need to be concerned any more than that with 663.
Greg, maybe a better term than blessing is basically that there are no vetoes from Alcor devs, that nobody has said that's not viable, we can't do that, we won't do that, something like that. Blessed.
It's literally the first gate.
Okay, but core devs can do that in the last call process and get it, off of the workload that we have here. Because we've got EIPs,
So I would say from the community side, they also have a problem of, do we even get this EIP to, like, how much work is it going to take to get the total specification and the test done? Is it even worth doing? So for them, validating that if they went through this work, it would be likely at least talked about seriously. And that discussion of being blessed doesn't have to be a long, drawn out discussion about specifications and such. It's just, oh yes, this would be a good idea to implement if you have. And so community, you're good to work on this. It's like a passing the torch to them and making sure it's validating their effort, just like we want our work to only be in high areas.
I hear you, but if you really care about something, you're going to put the work into it. And you can't be asking the community for blessing for something they haven't seen yet. It's sort of your problem to feel out the community. And yeah, if you really need to push it to our level, fine. But mostly, I don't think you need to.
Greg,
Well, I mean, if someone does a core EIP to delete like every ERC20 token, we want to be able to say, don't work on that. It's stupid, and it doesn't.
I'd like to propose that we maybe table this sort of like process discussion And
Yes,
let's
we
go on
should.
and Greg, you had some things you wanted to talk about. Is that any objections
Good idea,
to that?
Piper.
Yeah, I don't think the swap dupe should be here until, some basic decisions have been made on its spec. And I think it's far along in the process. Those decisions can be made without being discussed here. So I wouldn't consider it blessed, but it's not like there's a mountain of work that needs to be done to either get it blessable or say, no, this isn't going to work yet.
Okay, and what's the other EIP?
The particles of gas, that discussion seemed to trail off with some strong objections of we really don't need these. And so that's one I didn't see there was actually consensus on doing. Was that your proposal, Alex?
Partially, but I just wanted to reflect to the previous conversation that under Martin's EIP-centric proposal, what we have been discussing in the first half or majority of this meeting, the blessed status only means that nobody objected for the idea, but then there's no work put on the shoulders of the client developers. Having these blessed doesn't mean that the client developers have to work on this. It only means that those who propose them or are interested in them, they have to work on it.
Okay.
So that's the status of the particle gas cost as well. I don't think there was an objection to the idea, but now it's on the shoulders of those who proposed it or are interested to spec it out properly.
Okay. I still don't think they should be here until there's a consensus, in other discussions that we actually have a design that's going to work. But let's not go meta on that. So those were my two comments on those two EIPs, that they didn't look ready, and there looked to be substantial disagreement among the people discussing them, including some core devs.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Any other comments on those two before we move on to other ones? Okay. If I can find the meta and the agenda, what's the next one we should do? Is there anyone that wants to pick the next one we do that has like strong opinions on it? Because otherwise we'll probably be going through with a lot of silence on each one.
I don't think so. Maybe I missed this, but I don't think we actually had like a final say on 1702. Like I feel like the conversation kind of got sidetracked. And it seems like we all were kind of agreeing to remove it from the list, but I just want to make sure that, it's like an explicit agreement and not just implicit.
Not Berlin. I'll try and get an ink together with my ideas about what needs to make it useful for London on a forward compatible basis in probably 2 weeks to a month, but I think not Berlin is a reasonable conclusion.
I agree.
Great.
And it would stay blessed just for it. So the EIP 72 would stay blessed or green lighted as a concept, but removed from Berlin.
Yes, and there would need to be definitely changes before, and a champion before anything else would happen with it.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have specific EIPs they want to talk to? Okay. One that I found interesting was EIP 1962, the EC arithmetic and pairings with runtime definitions to replace 1829. I feel like, don't we already have one going into Istanbul that like does something similar?
No, that was just gas changes on Alt Gen 128.
Okay.
This one, I know that Ernst & Young wants it for their Nightfall. They made a point about that on their main stage presentation. But one of the concerns that Martin brought up was that it's just not very well spec'd and it's very dependent upon a single implementation, which I agree is a huge barrier that when the spec says use this implementation, that presents a systemic risk to the way we do things in Ethereum. So I think it would be good, but what we need is for the champions to go through and give better specifications. I know in the Ethereum Magicians thread, I asked them to split out into about 4 different precompiled calls rather than jamming everything into one precompiled call with a bunch of magic set up in the call structure. That has yet to be reflected in the EIP. So I think it's a good idea to provide a general interface to all the EC curves and let them be parametric based off one parameter versus which curve. But it needs work from the champions, I think. I think it's a good idea, but we need some work from the champions, and it's very much at risk for Berlin if we don't get work on that quickly.
Yeah, so we need to contact the champion about that one. Okay. The EIP 1380 reduced gas cost for call to self. Any comments?
That would need some benchmarking against one of the clients, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's Alex is one of the authors on that. Did you have anything, Alex?
I gave an update on Gitter. That one, and there's another one with the precompile cost. What is it? 2046. For both of them, Martin had made benchmarks, and those benchmarks show that some of the numbers need to be adjusted, but I think they kind of showed that there can be some reduction made. Of course, not to the extent originally proposed. So there was some work on it. Those benchmarks are listed on the Ethereum Magicians links, the discussion URLs for those EIPs. And if the DEFCON 5 videos for the workshops go live, there was an EVM panel, and this topic was discussed there for a couple of minutes. So that might be interesting to watch if they go live.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Moving on to another one. So, let's see. We've done 1702. 1985, I think we haven't touched on. That's sane limits for certain EVM parameters. And I think you had that in Gitter too, right, Alex?
Yeah, I feel bad speaking again, but the hope with that is it can be applied retroactively without the need of a hard fork. There was only one, I think one limit which was questioned whether that would require a hard fork. And this discussion is there on the Ethereum Magicians discussion URL. I kind of hope this won't even need to be part of a hard fork.
Okay, so it definitely shouldn't be in blessed status because it's still being discussed. It sounds like, and it might not even be necessary.
I mean, it was. I guess Martin has explained the reason for one of the limits why that would need a hard fork, and I would ask others who are interested in those limits to read that and give an opinion. I think that's the only decision needed there.
I'll go on Ethereum Magicians, but my question is if something is violated, what's the behavior? For example, the account size limits 160 bytes to 255. If you do load it up entire and operate on it, what should be the behavior at that point?
Account size limit? What do you mean?
Point 3 for the calls that operate on an address. Sorry, not account. Sorry, address size limit. For operations that operate on an address, limits it to 160 bits. If something in bit 161 to higher is part of that operation, should the operation fail? Should it ignore it? Should it treat it as 0? There's, I think, some things that I'll make a discussion in the Theory Magicians. It's a very technical question.
Yeah, I think it's better to discuss it off the call. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Have we done 2046? Reduced gas cost for static calls made to precompiles? Right, sounds like we haven't. And that one is... Alex, you're on a roll today. Here's another one of yours.
No, we actually discussed it as part of the reduced gas cost itself.
Oh, yep, we did. My bad. All right, the only one left is, oh no, ProgPow. So yeah, ProgPow's on here. What's everyone's feeling on ProgPow? We kind of know. I guess we all agreed on it a couple of times, so we don't really need to rehash the entire thing. But there has been some community sentiment that they don't want it in. For me personally, it's hard to tell if it's a few loud voices or the actual majority of the community that would, find this thing to matter to them and stuff like that. Anybody here have a perspective they want to share on that? Otherwise, this was already in blessed state, in my opinion. It's already been implemented mostly, at least the 0.9.2 version implemented.
So one question I would have for this group about ProgPow is, given that there is, at least some controversy either way, and it seems like some of it also comes down to like a values questions. Like some people just, seem to believe that ASICs are fine. Some people believe we should optimize for GPUs, and you can't really reconcile those two things. It's just like a fundamental like difference in belief. If we were to implement it, is this something we'd want bundled with other EIPs? Is this something we'd want a way for like the community to signal, through their nodes whether or not they want it? Like, do you do a single ProgPow hard fork? And that's a question I've been thinking a lot. And do we value sort of user choice maximally, even though having like a single EIP upgrade would like increase the risks of the network splitting? Do we value keeping the network together? So like even if we include ProgPow, we don't give it any special treatment and we include it with the other EAPs in the hopes that people just upgrade to the entire upgrade. So I'm curious what people's perspectives are just on that. Like if it were to go through, how much or little do we want to change our process? Yeah, I'll stop there.
I'd say we don't change it at all unless it is impending that unless there is very high probability on a technical level that there would be a controversial hard fork where the decision would need to be made to have people choose. And even then, that's up for discussion at that point. That's my opinion, though, and I'm not a core dev, so anybody else?
You go. I was gonna say,
man.
my opinion would be also not as a core dev alongside Hudson is to not treat it any differently as any other EIP that's going to go through. It may or may not go through depending on timing with other things, or it may go on its own. That just depends.
Piper, did you have something?
Yeah, I just am maybe expressing a common sentiment, or maybe it's just my own, but I am just borne down on this topic and mostly don't care. I'm being brutally honest and am willing to implement it in our client if that's what everybody else wants to do. But otherwise, I have no desire to put energy towards it. It is strictly there's other things that are higher priority, and it seems like a distraction. And I'm maybe going to get railed on the internet for saying that, but that's where I stand. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not going to advocate for it or run with it unless everybody else is doing it. So that's where I am.
Yeah, everyone just wants to stick with their friends, and that's in a positive light, I should say, as in like doing what everyone else is doing, whatever consensus dictates.
I did really love the idea of if everybody really wants this so much, and if miners really want this so much, then uh, shifting a percentage of miner rewards to go towards core protocol development as part of it, sort of like a payment for the time and energy. That's also probably an extremely controversial idea and not something that I'm looking at us hashing out on this call. But mostly my resistance is that it's a distraction for me, and there are other things that feel like they're more important. So if it's so important, then ideally it would be nice if we could get some more core dev resources out of it as well.
That's a good point. Anybody else have comments?
I don't think there's anything technically about it that should have been a big distraction. There's algorithm, there's the code. You write it and you plug it in, and it takes some time, but tough. And I think we are all completely worn down. We pretty much said yes at this point more than once. We've looked for technical problems. We haven't found technical problems. Um, can we just do this and move on?
Cool, thanks for that perspective. So yeah, this one has blessing for sure, I'd say. Is that what you all are reading into this, James or Tim or anyone else?
Yes. I assume that that makes, I don't know. I think I'm going to stop talking before I put my foot farther into my mouth.
Sure, I think we can leave it blessed, but it's probably worth recognizing there's like a bit more of a distance for it to actually go live than other EAPs would have, given that like most concerns are non-technical.
Yeah, we still don't really have a way to reconcile non-technical concerns very well, which sucks. Um, and yeah, if, I think I just said the words, "This looks blessed to me," and I bet that's going to be like quoted on Twitter, and everyone's going to be like, "Hudson's evil. He is pushing EIPs through." So, yeah, I'm ready.
I'll say
Come at me,
I'll
Twitter.
say it with you, Hudson.
Okay.
This EIP seems blessed to me.
Hudson, you can just blame me. I'm
Okay, I'll blame you,
the
Greg.
wizard. I ultimately bless things. I'll bless whatever you say I'm supposed to bless, but the wizard has blessed it.
All right, sounds good.
I don't care.
That's the last.
I really don't care what they say about me. They always get it wrong. So the hell with it.
Yep. So that's all for the tentatively accepted EIPs, right? Did I miss any?
James, you had one in the chat, right?
Yeah. So this was a 1559 as being blessed. The transaction fee upgrade that Vitalik originally wrote and Rick Dudley's currently working on.
Yeah, that looks blessed to me. Does anyone here have any comments that would make it not blessed? I've heard nothing but, like, I've never heard a negative thing about it so far.
I think this one's the poster child for the EIP-driven process. It gets blessed, comes back with an implementation, we poke at it, and then we finalize it and approve it from there. So that's my thought on it.
I would say that we should, if we bless it, we should keep in mind that Vitalik did just release something called Slim 1559, which is a less complex implementation of it that does trade-offs for how nice it, or what's it called? Basically, the improvements it would provide would lessen, but the complexity would lessen as well.
And that's why I think it's a great example of the IP-driven process, because you come up with an idea and you find changes that you should make along the way before you come back for final approval. So I think that's great that it's going through these evolutions and being thought through. And when we get a prototype that reflects what they think is the best idea, then we come back and discuss it.
Great.
Yep. And all of those
So that is
on this call. It's just, since it's been blessed, it's been happening. So I would agree with that too.
Okay, any other EIPs? Okay, we already went through process and scheduling discussions under topic 2 of the agenda. Anybody have testing updates? Otherwise,
Hudson,
let's see.
I have one comment.
Sure.
I also wrote this on Gitter. I don't think, I mean, today may have been a special day discussing those lists from the Berlin list, but I don't think we should really discuss those EIPs anymore unless there's like an implementation and a quite final spec for them, because they shouldn't be anything special.
I think that's great. That's a really, really good idea. Let's do it. And yeah, James said he agrees. Anybody else disagree or agree?
Just to be
That's
clear,
a
that I
complicated
guess
question.
that means that like if a champion comes on and is like, "Hey, I want to talk about this," we obviously let them on, but otherwise we don't bring up specific EAPs.
Yeah, that actually would make things a lot easier.
Yep.
I'd love
one meta question I have about that is, should the blessed state be something that's officially done on the all core devs call that then can be linked to in the notes, like the movement of it going to blessed?
I think we should personally.
I agree.
What do you think about that, Alex?
Should we pick a more neutral name for blessed, such as preliminary approval or something like that?
We can do green light. That was the original.
I like green light.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's too many millennial connotations with hashtag blessed, besides religious connotations. And I think someone asked Alex if that was cool.
Green light sounds like way more affirmative of like this is happening than...
That is a problem.
So this is going to be a bit controversial, but how about tentatively accepted?
How about provisional? Provisionally accepted.
I like that.
List of things that we don't hate.
Yeah. Looks good to me. Actually, Bitcoin has like a, what is it? It's like concept acknowledged or something like that. They use that like on the pull requests mostly, but I don't know.
Okay, I like LGTM. What Tim just suggested looks good to me.
Call it bike shedded.
Provisionally accepted. All in favor?
That's good. Provisionally accepted. Yeah, we'll do that. And if someone has a question about what provisionally accepted means, they can just go to the process, which we will be. Someone will write up.
Just say that the bike shed's ready. Bike shed is ready to be painted.
Yeah.
Okay.
James had the question whether provisionally accepting something should be on this call. And I personally think it should be on this call and be recorded.
I think that's important that it's recorded and put in the notes. Where's the agenda? I lost it in the tab.
Just one more thing. Earlier in the call, there was a proposal to have another like informational EIP listing these provisionally accepted things. Is that what was decided? I'm a bit confused about that.
Yes, and I I think more than just provisionally, I think we should also list where the EIPs lie on the new EIP process. So when a champion says that there is a prototype ready, they should update it and point to the prototype in the EIP so people can come poke and review it. If there has been security reviews done about it, they should move that the security review has been published and stuff like that. If there's a security review that needs to be done or things like that. And then when it's ready to come up for discussion for the final all core devs approval, for client implementation, that should be recorded there as well. So I think we need an informational EAP covering these new stages for Martin's model.
This would also go into EIP1, but it could be basically a sub EIP to EIP1 or something of that nature, a whole new EIP that's one that's active, informational, that we can then link to from EIP1 for core dev stuff specifically. And then ERC stuff will stay the same for now with the last call and things like that until we update it, which I'm hoping we'll do at some point.
So can we record a decision then? Is the decision to create a new EIP with the status of active, which list provisionally accepted EIPs? Is that the decision?
Yes, I would second that.
I'll be right back.
And can we have a sub decision there that the champion of a provisionally accepted EAP should be the one making PRs on that new sort of master list to add basically bullet points under their EAPs that point to progress as they have an implementation, as they have testing and whatnot?
I like the idea of the champion being on the hook for making sure the EAPs get updated, but I wonder how many of these should be in the actual EAP itself, and they would only recommend moving EAPs to stages rather than having the master EAP be a big old whiteboard of what your state is.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
I guess for visibility,
a tower of 2 liters fell on my wife.
Oh my God.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Just for visibility, I think it's actually good if like we have this master list that you're able to see stuff maybe that maps to the various stages of the EIP centric process. But like if I'm able to pull up the master list and be like, hey, EIP X like has an implementation and testing and just like one click through them, I think there's value there without it being like cluttered. I guess at most you'll get like 5 or 6 bullet points per EAP, which doesn't seem like it's too much overhead.
That sounds reasonable if we spell out what those points should be.
I think this will fit in the realm of stuff that I'll be managing or helping to manage moving forward. And I think just having the first step be, as Alex said it, and starting there, and then the idea being make it actually useful and then move forward with what needs to be added or changed. Because there's been other requests previously, like Peter wished that he could see them sorted by which ones are most ready, and things like that could be done in that repo, but I don't think they need to be decided, like pre-decided today about what of those things are going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I would be okay having it in the PM repo as well. I mean, I'm not keen on having it in the EIP repo. If that's easier or less work or.
So Jason had a good comment. Suggesting eligible for inclusion instead of blessed. And what was the thing we said? Provisionally accepted? Was that what we decided on earlier?
Yeah.
Okay. Eligible
I
sounds
like
great too.
Yeah, they both sound good.
Yeah.
So what does provisionally mean? That's the only thing I was having trouble with. Like, I don't know what the actual definition of provisionally is.
Like a provisional driver's license when you're training someone that, the right can be revoked if things go poorly. But I think eligible, I think communicates the intent better, because provisional implies that we put conditions on it and we know what those are.
Yeah. Let's do that one. Eligible, what was it? Eligible for inclusion. EFI. Oh, hey, Pooja, you had a comment about the ECH doing some stuff?
Yeah, I was wondering like if we can create the list of all the provisionally accepted EIPs from Istanbul, like going by the previous decisions made in calls and going forward and maintain it at the ECH GitHub, if that helps.
Let's not decide today on where it would be maintained, but I'm sure James can work with the ECH to work together to maintain that list because that's going to be an undertaking if things get more popular.
Sure, that sounds good.
I'm also
Great.
Yeah, I'm also unsure if it could fit in the PM repo or if like technically something this related to the dev process should be outside of the EIP repo. I don't know. That's something I haven't considered.
Yeah.
Uh, in,
Okay.
in that case, we should just start with the list and then we will think about where to place it, which repo.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay. We don't have previous decisions to discuss because the call notes aren't up yet, because it's only been a week or less since someone could even do them. Um, so we don't have testing updates today. I don't think anyone spoke up.
There
Anybody
is
else have any up?
there is
Oh, go
I
ahead.
did publish a test that Martin requested for EIP 2200. It does catch the instance where if you're using the less than instead of less than equal on the stipend, it'll blow up the test. So we got coverage for that now. The test once it gets merged.
Awesome. Anybody else have testing updates? Okay. Anybody have any other updates, client updates, anything else like that? All right. We will have our next meeting
Hey,
in
Hudson.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, just jumping in really quick. Earlier in the call, you said that the cat herders would be putting out an update on Istanbul, or it was between the cat herders and the Ethereum.org blog.
Blog.
I think for sure, 100%, it's got to be on the official blog. Not to downplay anything that the cat herders are doing, but this has to be super visible. And I think there should even be weekly tweets from the Ethereum account just to get people aware of this, what they need to do. Obviously, there's not a ton; they just update their node infrastructure by the date. But I think there should be a big communication push on this front from official Ethereum communication channel.
Okay. That sounds good to me. We'll definitely push a blog out on the Ethereum.org blog. I think we might have a more detailed blog post from the cat herders that is linked from the Ethereum blog. So the Ethereum blog will just say, hey, update your nodes. Here's all the clients that you can update from. For more information, go to the cat herders because they do all the other stuff. That might be the best compromise there.
Yeah, I think the important thing is just consistently repeating this over and over and over because people miss things frequently.
Especially when the hard forks happen early, we might actually say for people to upgrade by the 2nd instead of the 4th, since it could happen early.
Hopefully the upgrade kind of much before that.
We should look at future upgrades, having it by timestamp. Is that like really hard to do, client implementers?
People can lie about the timestamp in the block header. That's the biggest issue. So there is some skew in it that goes on. You could play games and say that the timestamp seen in the past 100 or 1,000 blocks exceeds this value, then do that. But then we need to write special logic that we need to test on all the clients to handle that, and that's a great way for consensus to get mixed up. Block number
I
is
seem to
just
remember
dead
there
simple.
being something weird about uncles that are like ahead of you on the fork. Like there were definitely some issues.
Okay. Sounds good. We can keep it with block number then. That's it. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll have our next meeting in 2 weeks, and that will be on the November 15th. When's Thanksgiving? I don't know what day Thanksgiving is. It's not then, right? For the US, I mean, not for Canada.
Yeah, we already had ours.
Yeah. I think regardless, we should have it on the 15th because every time we change the schedule, people like don't come. So I think if we can keep it,
Yeah. Even if there's not a lot of attendance, just keeping on schedule is good.
And I'm happy to facilitate if it's Thanksgiving in the US and for some reason you can't, Hudson. No worries.
Thanksgiving, I think, is the 28th of November. So that would affect the meeting in 4 weeks. But since everyone's going to go to midnight shopping, they'll just stay up a little later and go in for the call at 8 to 10 in the morning local time. And it's daylight savings time, so it's an hour earlier. So just coming from all of your shopping.
All right. Yeah, for those who don't participate in Black Friday that happens in the US, it's like the best holiday. So get on over here and participate. Anyways, I'm going to go take a nap now, I think. Good call. See you in 2 weeks, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.